The 2023 Aesthetics Tech Forum Conference, hosted by Octane, was held in Newport Beach, California on January 26 and 27. This year's conference theme was Fueling Innovation in the Medical Aesthetic Industry. Aesthetics is big business, and it's getting bigger and bolder. The conference attracts physicians, investors, and tech entrepreneurs who are interested in this exciting, growing field. Considering the large audience for the presentations at this meeting, Modern Aesthetics magazine was proud to be the official media partner of the forum. Today, we are hearing from Bill Karpu, the CEO of Octane, and he will be talking to Kamakshi R. Zeidler, MD, a plastic surgeon in California and a member of Octane's Medical Aesthetics Advisory Board, and Jason D. Bloom, MD, a facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon in Pennsylvania. Dr. Zeidler presented at the meeting on femtech in plastic surgery, and Dr. Bloom presented on treatment trends. Let's hear what they have to say.
Welcome, everyone. This is Bill Karpu. I'm the CEO of Octane. In case you missed it, during Octane's Aesthetic Tech Forum in January 2023. And the intent here is really to inform individuals that didn't attend what was missed and what was discussed during that. So let me just take a few minutes here at the beginning and frame up what Octane does, because I think as physicians, you all have the opportunity to go participate and attend a variety of different conferences throughout the course of the year. And ours is a little bit different because we really do focus on innovation. So Octane has been in existence for 20 years. The events that we have are basically a channel of distribution of our content and our learnings. We basically connect people and ideas with capital and resources. That's Octane's mission. So one way is to deliver these through in-person conferences. During our conference, our two-day conference, we talked about 7 specific areas that Dr. Bloom had presented. So I thought the idea here was that we could really dive a little bit deeper into this. So item number 1 was more aggressive procedures produce more natural results. And Casey, maybe starting with you. Do you mind if I call you Casey on this?
Oh, yeah.
Know each other so well, rather
Absolutely.
than Dr. Zeidler.
Yeah.
And,
Casey is how I roll.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I know you made a comment around surgical innovations or having a moment. So maybe we could expand on that.
Yeah, I'd say, my whole thought process is like surgical intervention is having a moment. In my practice, we have fully integrated plastic surgery, dermatology, and aesthetic medicine. So everything from esthetician to PAs, aesthetic nurses. I have a dermatologist as a partner. So we see the full gamut. And I think coming through COVID, there's a little bit of a halo effect from that patients are opting for more aggressive procedures to actually achieve a natural result. And Dr. Bloom can probably speak to this and did touch on this, that actually doing, say, a deep plane facelift where you're putting tissue back to where it's supposed to be and tucking the skin in very gently. These invasive procedures can actually reveal a global harmony that actually looks much more natural than, we see a little bit more in the news recently is like the pillow faces from overstuffed fillers being undone. So this idea of maximal intervention to create a very beautiful natural result is something that we're seeing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We're seeing a lot of these cases where people are, putting in so much filler. It's because they think it's less invasive and it's just like an injectable that it's going to make them look more natural. But honestly, in some cases, and we're seeing this more recently, that a surgical procedure without like a ton of filler or a ton of volume is going to make people look more natural. And even though it's more invasive, it's the right situation in a lot of these cases.
Well, okay, thanks. I think that makes perfect sense. And let's move on. That the second topic that we discussed was really about the Zoom boom, and I guess the headline on it was "A Zoom boom still booms." Even though from a COVID perspective, so many people have returned back to the office And I know just firsthand, I mean, I get depressed on a day when I'm on Zoom all day and I'm looking at myself. So, maybe we could, maybe, as a matter of fact, I mentioned that to another good friend of ours, and I said, what do I do? And he said, don't go on Zoom that often, and or turn your camera off. But in any case, what are you guys seeing on this? And maybe Dr. Bloom, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We're still seeing patients in the office that are coming in requesting changes because, they're constantly looking at themselves, whether taking selfies, being on Zoom. And this kind of started during, the time of, the pandemic when we were more on the computers. But people are getting these constant reminders or feedback of what they look like because they're seeing themselves looking right back at them, whether they're on their devices or their cameras. And it's good. I mean, certainly it's good for us because there are, we're seeing more patients that it's just kind of drawing attention to these areas, whether they want non-surgical or surgical corrections to these areas. It's just making them more aware that things are going on that they might not have noticed prior.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think part of what part of the nuance of this is that, we're a culture that's become accustomed to selfies and taking photos. And so the idea of face tuning and getting a static photo of yourself to present yourself the way you like to is something that's become part of our routine. On Zoom, what you see is yourself in motion, which is not something that we're usually accustomed to seeing on a daily basis in all of our interactions. So when you see yourself on camera, at sometimes the angles of the neck, people become much more fixated on certain areas, or in some ways, even looking for a more natural result when they're seeing their eyes move and seeing their lips move and their cheeks move, that I think we've seen a shift towards, going back to our prior points, a little bit more of a desire for a natural look. But Zoom gives us constant feedback about how we look and in motion with a variety of activities in life that we're just used to not really seeing ourselves.
Okay, so I don't feel that bad anymore then, so moving on, combination procedures and kind of the increased demand, whether it's collagen stimulation mixed with injections and laser and things like that. KZ, could you lead us off on that?
Yeah, I think, I would say cellulite is probably the quintessential problem that this really falls into, where there's been incredible advances and some interesting changes in the market. Quo was recently pulled off the market as an injectable treatment to treat cellulite dimples. And last year, the CEO of Revell was speaking in Octane, launching their new product, Ovalie, which is a targeted verifiable subcision of dimples, which has now come to mainstream. And what we've seen is there's lots of devices, Allergan acquired a technology, there's legacy treatments like Sulfina, there's radio frequency microneedling, liposuction, Renuvion is an RF treatment. So it's on and on and on, these technologies meant to treat a single problem that really has many different components. And so like cellulite, we're seeing these sorts of things, say in the face, when patients come in for facial rejuvenation. Dr. Bloom and I are both surgeons and we're comfortable doing surgery, but we're also incorporating fat transfer for volumizing. We're using nano fat for improving skin quality and injecting it just a millimeter or two under the skin surface. We're bringing the laser into the operating room and doing laser resurfacing at that time. And then we have practices where we have patients do everything from skincare to, maintenance treatments like toxins and fillers to refine things. So it's a full circle of care, which is exciting to be able to really give a comprehensive treatment plan or a set of services that take the results to the next level.
Absolutely.
So well said. I mean, I think what I always say in like the most difficult areas to treat, and you just brought up cellulite, which I don't even really treat much in my practice. Sometimes you just kind of have to throw everything at it to get the best results. And what I usually say in things like, even for the face, talking about things like acne scarring, it's like synergy, right? 1 + 1 = 10. and that you put some, biostimulatory things in it, and you hit it with like a laser. You could do RF treatments, whatever it is. But ultimately, by combining different procedures, maybe a little bit more minimally invasive, you're going to get a result that's better than the sum of its parts. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, and the next area, Jason, I'll direct this to you, is really talking about minimally invasive procedures maintain surgical results. So whether it's injectables, lasers, energy-based devices, I think the discussion was all about that. Those are starting to approach, a similar result to surgery. Could you comment on that?
So in my practice, and similar to Dr. Zeidler's, is that we have a bunch of different people in our office, whether physicians, surgeons, estheticians, nurses, who all do different kinds of things. And kind of gone are the idea that like surgery is a one and done treatment. And I tell people, because people ask all the time, like, how long is this procedure going to last? Meaning, is it going to last me 10 years or 7 years or 12 years? And I say, well, you always look better from surgery than if you didn't have it. But you continue to age. So by doing minimally invasive procedures, number one, as one of the surgeons in the office, I can then transfer the care of the patients to some of our nurses who are doing injectables, some of our estheticians who are doing skincare and laser. And then, so they're constantly looking better, not just from the surgery. And it makes my surgical results look better if, we do a great surgery and then their skin looks great and, they have less wrinkles from their neurotoxin. And the great thing is it keeps the patients within my practice. It maintains the results of surgery, so they might not need a second surgery as soon. And the patients are happy because the results look really good.
So it's really a post-operative process that continues the results that they would have gotten out of the surgery itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I will say is in a practice where a dermatologist is one of my partners, we see, say different populations enter our circle of care at various points. I mean, they may come for a facial and work their way up to eventually toxin and then filler, and then maybe one day they want surgery, which is sort of the classic thinking of, the aesthetic patient. With ours being a very heavy surgical practice, much like yours, Dr. Bloom, we see patients coming in for surgery, getting on our circle and never getting off. And so a lot of the pre-operative care now incorporates, nutraceuticals and, collagen particles to help boost the skin. There's topical treatments that prepare the skin. And so patients are trained to think of all of this aftercare as part of a continuum. And, they may come for just a breast augmentation, but then stay in the practice for all their needs. And so this constant influx of surgical patients feeds an overall wellness, aesthetic medicine, also ongoing dermatology, minimally invasive practice, just like you talked about. And so it's very exciting.
Yeah, so I mean, it keeps a patient in your practice and keeps a patient looking well with the results.
Yeah,
I love that. Let's move on to age, and it appears from everything we spoke about a couple of weeks ago is that the patients are becoming younger and more diverse, and it's almost as if some of the treatments, in the injectables or whatever, are being treated as preventative, from that generation. So KZ, maybe take us off on this one.
Yeah, I think, the term rejuvenation is totally outdated. And I think, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, this term prejuvenation or like preventing problems emerged of, okay, well, this is the new thing. And I would say looking at, millennials are big consumers, but even looking at Gen Z and the way they're approaching life and wellness and self-care and empowerment and life decisions, aesthetics is not really about fixing something or preventing something. It's a little bit more of a carpe diem, presenting my best face or body, to the world. And so this idea of, Facetune has been incorporated into a sense of wellness. So not only are people, getting their hair cut and getting their nails done, but they're incorporating, lip filler and medical grade skincare and, high-end hyaluronic acid and toxin injected into the skin to create that donut glaze that everyone loves about Hailey Bieber without the need for just topical skincare. So I think that we're really seeing this emergence of a younger patient who's seizing the moment to be their best self. And the traditional thinking of rejuvenation and correcting aging or preventing aging, we're really seeing fade away. And then what dovetails with that, I think, in this sense of carpe diem and self-expression, is a much more diverse patient who is seeking aesthetic treatments. And I think certainly coming through COVID, a lot of the aesthetic companies, took a pause and a moment to reflect on diversity with some of the social justice reforms and issues that were brought up during that time. And they've shifted their marketing, they've shifted their business strategy to meet a much higher demand and a more holistic view of natural beauty. So it's a very exciting time, I think, for companies coming in the space. In addition to physicians, there's a huge kind of unmet need that we'll talk about some of those things, but it's an exciting time to see a lot of growth within aesthetics.
Yeah, Jason, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm seeing definitely exactly what she's talking about. The one other thing that I will add that I've just seen in my facial rejuvenation surgery practice is that I used to say that a lot of these procedures, probably about 85% of the patients were somewhere between their mid-50s and mid-60s about 10 years ago. But I would say in the last, 3 to 5 years, the vast majority of my patients seeking these procedures are in their early 50s. And so what I mean by that is like kind of lower face neck rejuvenation, a facelift candidate. And I think it's because of what we said in the first bit is that we're doing more natural surgery, but also because patients want to enjoy it longer. They're seizing the day. They're taking their results and they're enjoying them, and they want to enjoy the results of their surgeries for a longer time. So patients are coming in a little bit more early than I had previously seen in the past.
So it's kind of like be the best version of yourself today.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And love it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I actually do a lot of facelifts or like a short scarf facelift in people in their 40s. Certainly in Silicon Valley, everyone wants to be young and edgy, and looking at their necks all day long on Zoom helps them to really consider a more definitive solution. So that lower face, I think younger and younger patients are seizing the moment to get that snatched jawline. So totally agree with you.
So, and another topic which this kind of blends into now is has to do with patient financing. And I know Patient Fi is a company that we've worked closely with in our accelerator, and Todd Watts is the CEO and founder. And when I look at that, both of you have practices that probably do some sophisticated, complicated, and on the more expensive end of some of the procedures and everything. Versus just an injectable or so. But what are you seeing in your practice and maybe between the different products, and whether it's an injectable on up to a full facelift of financing opportunities for people and those moving towards that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think financing is definitely critical. I mean, there's always people who have the means to not need that. But I do think the shifting demographic of the patient interested in aesthetics is used to more of a subscription type of model and enjoys that as, part of wellness. And if you take the way that patient now is presenting this to have us really think about the larger ticket items in that way, it really makes sense. In our practice, we've shifted to a subscription model for things like Sculpt. So you pay a monthly fee, or for skincare, medical grade facials. And so, I really thought the way that Patient Fi presented this was a really great way of looking at how the aesthetics market can grow, and presenting to patients the concept of, now you can have this at a monthly fee of X, just like you think of the iPhone, where you can have new technology, you can have something that's cutting edge, you can have something that's very luxurious, but that the mindset of the consumer is on the subscription sort of a service. I mean, we see this with just like home and real estate in Silicon Valley, where everyone's renting and then owning property elsewhere so that they can enjoy a certain experience, lifestyle, what have you, on a monthly rate, and it's not necessarily this one big investment. So yeah, I'm curious to see what you think, Dr. Bloom, but I really liked the way that Patient Fi presented this concept of thinking of everything as, a monthly payment, and the way that the consumer is really thinking about accessing aesthetics that way.
Yeah, I mean, I love this idea for the right age patient, and it really depends on marketing and who your target patients are that you'd be marketing this to. And openly, we use Patient Fi in our office. We offer it. I've been using them for a while, and I like their whole concept. But if you look at it, this was just one of Todd Watts's stats, and he said that like 80% of consumers aged 22 to 44 were interested in these monthly payment plans. Well, I mean, that's great in a patient who, that's the majority of your injectables patients, the 22 to 44-year-olds. So I think that sounds fantastic. What, you pay for your neurotoxin $100 a month versus $700 once. But and certainly patients in that group in your category kind of fall into maybe your breast augmentation patients. For me, some of the rhinoplasty patients, to kind of market those procedures to that group as you can pay $400 a month and get your rhinoplasty, or it is more palatable to someone than paying, $20,000 up front. So I like that. I do like that idea in the right age demographic category. I'm just less weary of like a facelift patient looking at that, just because they're tend to be a little bit more mature patient and are using these services a little bit less frequently.
Excellent. So the last portion of this part is really about influencers and holding their sway in aesthetics. And I guess the data that I've seen here is the influencer industry is valued at $16.9 billion, and lifestyle and beauty hold the number one and number two spots in terms of influencers. So what do you see in your practice? And Jason, maybe start with you on this, in terms of the the sway that influencers have.
I mean, it is kind of crazy. We're definitely seeing in our practice, certainly social media has been king from a marketing standpoint in the last couple of years. I was kind of even slow to believe it, but, there is so much kind of, influence or information that people draw from social media these days. And we're seeing it, whether it's they're watching their favorite TikTok star, or and I've done some surgery on some social media influencers, and I'm shocked by the amount of patients that come in for consults or requesting consultation for surgery or treatments just because they saw that one person online or on their social media talk about their experience. But one of the things that I thought was the most interesting is that there was a study done by Evolve MKD and Meg Driscoll, she owns this PR firm, and she said that they did some independent research and independent studies, and they showed that medical-based voices seem to stand out as influencers from a lot of the other noise that exists there, which is good for us. And when she said medical voices, it doesn't even have to be a doctor. It could be a nurse or an esthetician or somebody with kind of some medical knowledge that was kind of explaining these things. It's good. That means that we're still kind of influential in some respects, and that people want to hear what we have to say.
That's great, because I've always wanted to be an influencer. So
Well, I
There's
follow you.
still
I follow you on Instagram, so
Me too. You influence me.
oh God. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It's exciting to hear. I know from other resources. I mean, that was a great study, and Megan's amazing, and she presented some really great data. And it's really reassuring to see that, as physicians, we are influencers when it comes to medicine and our knowledge. And I think that probably will bear out as our like our moving from millennials to Gen Zs are accessing aesthetics even more. They're a savvy group. So that's great. It bodes well for their decision making.
KZ, can we have you comment on you did a femtech panel, and I thought it was really well received and attended, and you maybe talk a little bit more about some of the things that you're doing in that particular area and your passion for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as a plastic surgeon that does the full gamut of aesthetics, and having had my roots in breast reconstruction and, a family who has been affected by the breast cancer gene, I think I'm very acutely attuned to, how a woman, expresses themselves and accesses aesthetics as well as surgery. And, breast implants and breast aesthetics certainly is one of the things that we see a lot. So I've been very involved, with a variety of companies. I had the great fortune of testifying at the FDA when they did their recent panel before, the implant was pulled from the market a couple of years ago. So there's been a lot of interesting things that have happened, negative and positive within breast aesthetics. I think other areas of medicine, such as, pelvic reconstruction with meshes, have been riddled with some issues. So I think you have this a little bit of a wet blanket on the way that aesthetics and medicine approaches women's health. So the concept of femtech is something I really learned from my good friend JJ, who's founded a company to devote their new implant coming to market to this concept of being a femtech new device. And so with that, the idea is that these things are designed with women's health in mind, and not just for the purpose of reproduction or for sexuality. And so the way that they approach their marketing, the way that they approach their business development, both with his company and then other companies, is with the sense of overall wellness. So when we look at breast aesthetics in particular, I think, the traditional companies available in the US have done very much a great job at marketing to a very small segment of that market, of thinking, okay, we're going to build breasts after cancer, or we're going to, make people who don't feel great about their breasts feel great about their breasts. And it has been sexualized, or it has been correlated with pregnancy changes. And so it's very interesting to see the way, even like the American woman, but it translates globally, sees breast aesthetics and the stigma that's associated with implants. And so the way that we see the changes happening in other parts of aesthetics is what we're also seeing in devices designed for aesthetic breast surgery, where there's more empowerment. It's not meant to fix cancer or to correct changes from pregnancy. So this concept of like fixing something that's broken, it's more an empowerment and a self-expression, that it's, a choice to be more feminine, not for any other reason. So I personally think it's very exciting, this overall concept, and the way they're going to be bringing technologies to the US in a more a more holistic form of marketing towards breast aesthetics. And I think for what's exciting for women about that is that the stigma hopefully is removed, and people can sort of just the way that people are with lip filler now, that they're open about it, that can feel, more empowered to make those decisions. So it's exciting. I don't know if it's a broad concept, and there's a lot of technologies affiliated with it. I think what we got to hear a little bit at Octane is, these new breast implants that Motiva is bringing have the sensor technology that I'm actually extremely excited about, because, fast forwarding 30 years into the future, I think some of these technologies that are like implantable, it's like, don't think of a new breast implant, think iPhone, and think of technology that becomes one with your body that can access lots of information. Can it monitor your heart? Can it monitor your temperature? And suddenly you can have an app that, can help you with fertility rather than having to use a device to externally gain information. It's something that could be more integrated. So for the long scope of where medicine in general is going and wellness, these technologies I think are really exciting.
Before I wrap up here, can I just, turn it back to both of you and maybe take a minute or two is just what are some additional unmet needs, because I'd like to wrap up with some of the innovation that Octane's doing and bringing to the market. But, what do you see as some unmet needs that are out there, in a minute or two each, if you could?
I think that, some of the things that are talked about, that we're seeing a lot of companies try to, bring on new products or new innovation in this area. One of them is skin and hair. I think those are two big things. So skin quality, making the skin more kind of radiant, and it's sometimes hard to kind of even put your finger on how you would measure that, but skin quality may be better, fewer lines, better pore size, all these kind of things, better texture, with new and advanced skincare with some of the kind of regenerative medicine things that they're putting in it. And the other is hair. I mean, not just men, but women, men, everyone is kind of concerned about their hair and losing it and maintaining it. So some of again, in regenerative medicine, that's been a huge push, I think, in the last couple of years that we're seeing, and really to get something for hair loss, hair restoration in either an injectable or something to maintain that is really, I think, what a lot of companies are looking to do.
Totally agree with you on skin quality and hair. I actually recently just started doing a little bit of a research project with a company that, is hoping to reverse like gray hair. And everyone I've mentioned to is like, shut the door, like that would be amazing. Imagine the quality of life change to be able to deal with some of that. But the other thing I'll just say that we did talk about a little bit is, the weight loss craze and body image and excess body fat is definitely, one of those top three concerns. And we talked a lot about Ozempic and some of the controversy around it. And then I think what some of us are seeing now is what people call Ozempic face. So almost the opposite of the pillow face, of losing so much volume. So it's creating a new problem that needs to be addressed both surgically and non-surgically. So interesting concepts.
So I want to thank both of you for taking the time today and spending it on this podcast. And for those that are joining and listen to this, I just want to wrap up by saying, Octane is here for the industry. And one of the things that we introduced at the aesthetics event this year, and we have a kind of a unique capability of doing this, is taking companies that have come through our accelerator and matching them up with physicians and really talking about physician entrepreneurship. And whether that's a physician that has an idea and wants to bring it to market, or a physician that may just want to join another company as a medical advisor, chief medical officer, or board member. Those are things that we're putting in all of our industry-specific events throughout this year. So whether it's aesthetics, ophthalmology, or cardiovascular, what we're really trying to do is take companies that have great ideas, great innovation, and matching them up with really smart people in the industry that could help them grow that business. So I want to thank everybody for joining this, and both yourselves, KZ and Jason, for participating today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Modern Aesthetics, the podcast. You can find future editions at modernaesthetics.com or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.